Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the webinar. I am Hillary Settle. I am the Senior Marketing Manager here at Insightpool. Before we get started with Dawn, I would like to first discuss a few housekeeping rules and for you to submit any sort of questions, you can go on the right panel under questions as well. You can join us on on social media under hashtag social insights. Please ask any questions throughout the webinar. At the end, we will address them then. All right, to get started. Unfortunately, Leanne Berner, our CMO at Insightpool, is unable to join us today. So I will be running point on the webinar and going through a few key topics with Don and prompting him in a few questions to give some thought leadership content around social-driven insights. So to kick it off, I want to introduce Don McDonald, CMO at MX, former CMO at Intel. Don, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Hillary, and good morning, everyone. I'm very glad to be part of this webinar. My experience covers more than 25 years in marketing, communications, product development, and strategy, and that includes stints, as Hillary said, at Intel as CMO, Fiserv, a financial services company in Milwaukee, their first CMO, Checkpoint, Qualcomm, and now I'm at a startup in Utah called MX. We're founded in 2010. We've got about $50 million of startup funding led by USAA, one of the most innovative and progressive banks in the nation. We have about 600 clients and partners, and we get through about 5 million end-user transactions per day. So it's fun to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Great, thanks. So to kick it off, Don, I wanted to just talk with you about where you're seeing marketing technology and how it's evolved over the course of your 25 years working in marketing tech.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I had candles as the illustration on their show, but nevertheless, the reality is that today's CMOs are witnessing, I think, both a technology proliferation as well as a technology acceleration. And you look at the technology, and the common currency of all technology is the transistor. And the fact is that transistor costs have plummeted. And to put this in context, if car prices have fallen as quickly as transistor technology, a Lamborghini over the same period, a Lamborghini would cost less than a penny. So the result of this technology price reduction is that everything is digital and connected. Because CPU and storage costs are trending to zero. So the barriers to entry have essentially been eliminated for many industries, including filmmaking, music, and of course, marketing technologies, as well as everything else. So the proliferation of technology can be explained that way. And then the acceleration of this technology has also accelerated. I mean, to put it in perspective, it took McDonald's, the burger company, 46 years to sell 100 billion burgers. Apple, it took less than 6 years to download 100 billion iOS downloads, and Android less than 5 years. So the implication for CMOs and marketing in general is that while experience is valuable, we all essentially have to relearn these new technologies and embrace brand new approaches for whatever we do within marketing. But the fundamentals remain the same. Who's your audience? What do you want them to do? What will you say to them? And how will you reach them?
That's great. So with this rapid growth, and you can see in this Lunascape that it has just transformed over the years. How do you feel like this is affecting marketers right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've clearly seen an inversion in the role of social. Before this period, you basically do, I don't know, expensive standalone market research would be the catalyst for insights that fed the product lifecycle, the product development, the launch, the advertising and sales. And then, volumes became interesting, but usually the role of social was restricted to just another minor channel of communication. So now we've got immense amounts of data that, if used properly, can be the catalyst for the insights for the entire company, not just as a standalone channel. And as the image on the screen shows, the challenge is knowing how to use those insights. Tens of billions of interactions, millions of daily brand interactions, and yet the reality is all of us are still figuring out how do we actually utilize those conversations and start turning those insights into actions within all of our entities.
Yeah, I mean, and to this point, I mean, 30 billion daily social interactions for brands to sift through and try to figure out how to use those. How do you feel like that is, affecting brands and really kind of how are they supposed to handle all of this social data overload?
Well, this is one of the challenges. I mean, the reality is there's no question that this is a tsunami of data. And it has the potential, sorry, it does have the potential, if not the actual effect, to overwhelm marketing. And so it's very clear that a major takeaway is one of the key skills that marketers need to hone and to polish is how to transform these data into insights. And then, of course, how are you going to act on those insights? And that is probably skill number one that will enable you to break through all the clutter. But the volume of data and how you deal with it is the number one challenge and the number one skill that marketers need. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. If you go to the next slide, actually, Hillary, I thought it'd be interesting just to put this in context on actually the next one in terms of how we acquired insights back in the 1990s, just to put this in perspective. I mean, while it's overwhelming, it's also an enormous opportunity for all of us. So on the left-hand side is an example from my Intel days when VOC was voice of the customer. We would basically start doing the research 3 to 5 years before we started launching a new processor, for example. And so depending on the actual particular product and what it was, we would spend months and, literally hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars looking at, what are the needs? What do people care about? What do they want? Because for many, many years at Intel, as an example, the only thing that mattered was the race for more megahertz or gigahertz. So, it's hard to believe that we used to have processors that were, 12 megahertz and then 25 megahertz, then 50 megahertz and so on. And now we have gigahertz processors. So for a long time, we just assumed the engineering world was, this is what they want, even though we haven't asked them for it. You would research what features, how you would price those features, what you would define on them. And so I kind of put in there for interest, this is a real slide from about 15 years ago, 1990, I think it was. But basically how we would do the qualitative and the quantitative screening, the feature trade-off, and the pricing studies. And all of that took an enormous amount of time and an enormous amount of budget. And then you kind of look at an example from my current life. This is something called FinSmart on the right. And this is something that we use within financial services. Now, we actually have access to the specific payments data. But as an example, we know what people want. So on the right-hand side is basically giving you an example to say that last night, your interest rate on your credit card went up from 4% to 18% for whatever reason. And so that credit card might have been from a competing institution, a bank or credit union or a Capital One, whoever it might be. So we're able to use real-time insights, real-time data to put a display in front of you on your phone, your login page, to be able to say, hey, John, because we know it's John, so it's hyper-personalized. We can actually save you $22 a month because we've looked at the rate we're willing to give you, we've looked at the rate you're currently paying, and we can estimate that over the life of this loan or for the duration of the rest of the year, here's how much money you would actually save if you're interested to apply now. So it's dynamic, it's at an emotional, important time. We just had that credit card increase. So you can just see how the kind of the bookends, if you like, from the way we used to do this to where we can go to if we can make this data, if we can sift through the masses and masses of information by listening into conversations, hyper-personalizing them, making them dynamic, making them real-time. The point is that we're kind of, the challenge for us is we're using what I call recombinant technology, lots and lots of data, lots and lots of devices, giving you information that we as marketers can convert from data into insights and use them in ways we've never thought possible.
And it seems that customers now are really able to see the other side of what using this data, the insights, and being able to personalize, being able to do things faster for customers, that's really been affecting their user experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's crucial. If you don't have those insights, if you can't actually get inside people's minds, then you're just going to be part of the massive amounts of noise. Been true forever. The difference is that in the past, you needed to have huge budgets like the Intel budget. I think my budget back then was about $3 billion a year. But whoever had the biggest, the largest amount of money basically had the largest voice, could actually dominate the getting into people's minds. It's a lot more sophisticated now. You need to be smarter. You really need to be able to resonate with the target audience. And to do that, you need insights. And so that kind of democratizes our skill, our trade, to say, if you can access those insights, if you can utilize those insights and be smarter than the other guy, be more adaptable, that's how you succeed, not just by having the largest budget.
Right. So what do you think that this means for today's marketer?
Well, there's no question there's both micro and macro implications for everyone in the marketing department. First, you need to understand the big picture and where this technology and the social combination is going. You've got massive changes in technology. You've got massive changes in social behaviors, the way we actually want or the way we're willing to accept how we actually get a message delivered to us. Plus, we've also got these massive filters that filter out the vast majority of everything we're spending money on. So we need to understand those changes. So, understanding that big picture and then being able to understand how to use it for traditional marketing purposes, that part's the same. Who's the audience? What are you going to say to them? What do you want them to do? How are you going to reach them? But there's no question that also at the macro level, these customer-facing insights have strategic importance for the role of marketing within the company. And I think those two things are really absolutely shaping the role of marketing and the role of the CMO.
So with this fusion of different technologies specific to marketing technologies you spoke about before and also advertising technologies that both marketers have to use and have to figure out how to use them both in conjunction, how do you feel like where do you feel like that fusion is going for the future?
Well, I think this is we've got to be careful here. This is basically allowing us to do what we've always tried to do. So if you look at, go back to Rees and Trout and some of their writings, they would state that, while devices are built in factories, products are built in people's minds. And billions of dollars have been spent on market research to tell marketers what people are thinking. Whereas today, kind of the MadTech environment allows us, we just need to learn how to listen into those conversations and then hone those listening skills to extract the insights. And so, marketing skills, I think, ironically, marketing skills will become more aligned with the NSA than the ANA being the Association of National Advertisers. So, the NSA listens into everyone's conversations and listens for keywords, looks for insights, looks for things they can action on. So maybe that's in poor taste, but the point is that's what we have to do. We need to hone incredible listening skills, and MadTech is allowing us to do that. And our skill will be able to, like I said, use this technology, use the petabytes of data that we're getting to be able to ascertain those insights. But it's all about listening in and converting those conversations into actions that make a difference.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, Hillary, by the way, is that in this model, I kind of referred to this earlier, but in the MadTech model, anyone with a budget basically will have equal access to data and delivery. So, these are all available as external services from companies like yourself, from Insightpool. So what this means is the only real differentiator to the marketing department, or to the consumer rather, appears in the decision layer. And this is where marketing companies are going to compete to make the smartest decisions about which messages to deliver to which customers in which media. And so what we're really describing is using new technologies to allow us to do the things we've always done. A renewed focus on core marketing skills, including branding, positioning, value definition, and creative development. But this just allows us to do that with a lot more specificity and a lot more precision than we've ever done in the history of marketing.
Yeah, definitely. So, when we're looking at that Lunascape and, over, 3,500 companies in the MarTech, AdTech space, why do you think now MadTech is coming about, this sort of fusion of both AdTech and MarTech?
Well, I think it's just timing is right. Some of these things have been around for a long, long time, and you need the moon, the stars, the planets to align. So, basically, I think the reason why the timing is right now is we are seeing the forces of change around technology and social behaviors kind of align. So the technology, as I kind of alluded to before, is advancing at an incredible pace. We've moved from desktops to laptops to tablets to smartphones, and we're on the cusp of real wearables, to location-aware services, to payments data, and so on. The point is, we're in a space of 50 billion digital and connected devices, And all of those devices are capturing one piece of information about the target audience. So, that data will almost certainly is increasingly becoming real time. And so you're able to deliver messages almost immediately before the point of sale. Consumers, on the other hand, are becoming increasingly comfortable to have relevant recommendations. And, if you look at companies like Netflix, I believe I saw a Netflix piece of data from Netflix that said that 72% of all Netflix content is the result of a Netflix recommendation. And so you begin to look at how that can impact other companies and other industries. I'm in banking or in the financial services industry. So if you can imagine in banking the possibilities of seeing real-time payments data, here's somebody who's just had multiple medical copays, for example. We know that the number one cause of bankruptcies in the US, personal bankruptcies, is an unexpected medical bill. But combining the ability to be able, as a marketer at a financial institution, to be able to serve up an offer to say, can I interest you in an interest-only mortgage, converting your interest and principal to interest-only for a fee, just at a time when you really need that, can actually help you become incredibly timely and relevant. So the technology, the media landscape, the on-demand, or the real-time nature of data, I think that, coupled with an acceptance for the consumers to have incredibly relevant information, that's different from this intolerance to be spammed with just junk offers. But the fact that the technology, coupled with the acceptance from the consumer, I think now is the timing if we don't mess it up. We have to make sure that those insights are accurate, they're relevant, and they're germane to the target audience. So I think we're seeing this ability for all of us to combine these innovations that have all existed separately to certain degrees. And like I said, I call it recombinant innovation. Think of it like Waze. Waze is the traffic generator with social. You've got the internet, you've got GPS, you've got social media, but they've been able to combine all those in a way that can actually provide a new type of service, a new solution that people value. And I think that that's why MadTech allows us to do something similar. We can do what we've always done, but we can do them in new and exciting ways that are adding value and creating value for our target audience.
And do you think that MadTech is something that can be used across multiple industries, across multiple, different technology tools to use to sort of do this fusion, MadTech?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you think about it, all of us are trying to reach the target audience. Marketing 101, who is your audience? What do you want them to do? Do you want them to buy something, to communicate something, to be a flag waver for you, a flag bearer for you? I mean, what is your third thing is, what are you going to say when you reach them? And finally, how are you going to reach them? So I don't care which industry you're in, or whether you're selling men's black socks, or whether you're selling financial services, or whether you're selling cars, or anything in between. You still need to be able to say, who's my audience and what am I going to say to them? And the insights allow you to be a lot more, to have your finger on the pulse in terms of what people care about. So whether you're looking at children's clothing and that, the mothers are talking about, hey, it's a real pain to put the kids' clothes on, or if you're talking about financial services or laptops that people are saying, there's no conversations around performance, for example, all the conversations around battery life, or my laptop's too heavy, or my phone's battery life doesn't last, whatever it might be. I don't care what industry it is, the ability for you to use the technology, use the social networking, and listen into those conversations has implications for every single marketing person, whether it's B2B or B2C. You can derive those insights quicker, faster, and more accurately than you've ever done, again, in the history of marketing.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. And, if we were to break down a little bit, MarTech and being able to, personalize your own channels, and then AdTech being able to, capitalize on your paid strategy. And then this fusion of MadTech, where do you really feel it's the solution to what problem that marketers are having?
I think it's always been a scale issue. We've been able to do some really funky things using listening into social media conversations, but they've always been tail end Charlie. They've always been something used as one of the channels. But if you wanted scale, you go back to TV advertising, radio, print, whatever it was, mass marketing. The challenge has been that the mass marketing generally has meant it's not personalized. And then the traditional kind of word of mouth marketing, if you like, has always suffered from a lack of scale. But today, with the volumes, we already saw the numbers earlier, the tens of billions of conversations. The ability to marry those two things mean you can get personalization at scale. And that, I think, is the reason why the timing is correct now. We allow, like I said, a game changer on this is that this is something that every marketing person needs to be comfortable with. How do you harness the volume, and how do you harness the volume in a way that allows you to deliver hyper-personalized and dynamic messaging? And that's been the paradox that we've never really been able to conquer in the past, and we have the opportunity to do today, is personalization at scale.
Yeah, and to your last reference about the example about kids' clothes, you're really involved with sort of what Insightpool has been doing from an insights to action point of view, being one of our key advisors, and just really understanding where the market is going. To that point in personalization at scale, I kind of wanted to speak a little bit too, and I know, John, you've heard this example before, some work we did with Craftsman, and just a really interesting time for a company that's just trying to understand not only who their target audience is, but really who isn't currently engaged with Craftsman that actually might be. And they started running a campaign around a made to race hashtag. And what they were finding, and what Insightpool was able to identify for them, was an untapped audience that they didn't know that was really hyper engaged. And what was really interesting is when they launched this campaign, they were sponsoring a major female racer, and wanted to say, okay, well, we're just going to go and identify just racing fans in general. Well, what they've found is actually there's a female racing community that was very engaged on social media, that was excited about what NASCAR was doing, that they were promoting women in racing, and Craftsman was able to partner with that and really engage some great user generated content through this hashtag. And Insightpool was not only able to find out who these audiences were, but not only that, find insights about them. So they are moms, they are single women that love NASCAR, they are they like to shop, but they also like to fix cars. And they were able to also uncover all of these hidden insights about this community, and make sure that the content that they were engaging was exactly to the demographic. And so it was a really exciting time for us. Craftsman saw some great results, and actually the highest engagement they've had on a campaign like this. So to your point, Don, understanding social insights, understanding the data, and being able to make it actionable for their brand, we've seen incredible success with our customers to that. And
that doesn't surprise me. I mean, the reality is marketing 101. Who is your audience? And like I said, in the past, whenever we've kind of looked at social insights, it's been a delivery channel, and it still is a delivery channel, don't get me wrong. But the reality is the social insights can do exactly, I think it's a superb example, can actually help you identify who are the segments and audiences, and also who are they not, so that you can actually focus on the people who are, an appropriate target for, whatever message you're trying to deliver. I mean, I think it's a terrific example. Because a lot of people, there'll be people in these companies saying, our typical audience is a guy who's aged between blah blah, and the reality is there's no such thing as one audience. There are multiple audience, and by listening into the insights, I think it's just a really good example of how you can do something, pretty much overnight to identify the people who make up your audiences, as opposed to the oldie worldly way of either not doing anything and just guessing who your audiences are, or spending a buttload of money over many, many months to, ascertain. And even then, a lot of the research has never been exactly accurate, because it depends on which questions you ask.
Right.
So listening in gives you insights that otherwise, I think they're purer, they're more real time, and they're more accurate than anything we've ever done in the history of our function.
Right. And what's interesting about it too, and our CEO, Devin Widgesinger, says this all the time, that not social media in general, but specific to Facebook and Twitter, it is the largest focus group for brands now. I mean, on social media, people are sharing how they feel about different things, topics they care about, information. They put so much information on their social channels, and now brands have ways to access that. Which is making it easier for brands to understand their target audience, and also curate content that resonates with them in a way that feels authentic, and really is able to help a brand drive conversions, and not waste money on the wrong target audience. So Don, to that point, would love for you to share just some experience that you've had from a customer standpoint, and just give some insights from your side.
Yeah, this is just, I mean, obviously the results, getting people to care enough to click through is a big deal. And so what I'm showing on here, and I'll just explain this, is in the blue is something we called insight and target. And again, this is, we're in a unique position because we have actually, we process the payments data. But my point is, what we're trying to show here, if I can explain this, is that, you know, the average numbers, you can argue depending on which source you get this from, but the average numbers for a display ad are about, you know, less than 1% of click-throughs. A Facebook display ad, less than 1%. This is banking and insurance, highly personalized and relevant email, where you get less than 3%. And then we have a product called Insight and Target. And again, it's not so much the product I'm really focusing on, but how it works. And so when we actually begin to look at this, Insight and Target allows you to analyze, garner the insights, and then deliver a message that's based on those insights, so it's highly relevant and to you. Then we see the click-through rates go up to about 15.6% if you do it properly, i.e. the examples on the left, the blue, the 4.19% of the average, which, you know, go out to maybe more than 70% of the audience. The examples for the 15.64%, the top 5, are where they've been hyper-personalized to around about 10% of the audience. So they're much more customized. And then on the right is some of the early data we're seeing on something called FinSmart, which are personalized. So it's got your name, it's got your exact, in this case, a credit card rate. And the timeliness is it happens within a certain period of getting an increase or some kind of event. And we're seeing breakthrough and click-through rates that are just simply amazing. And the only reason I raise this is because, for me, it's a good example and a very good illustration of how we can break through the clutter. Extreme personalization, make it relevant, and make it, you know, extremely timely. Then you can actually use this world of listening into conversations, taking advantage of snippets of data, tying that into something that is highly likely to be able to resonate with the target audience, and we're able to go from virtually, you know, paying a huge amount of money for very low click-through rates or very low engagement rates, all the way through to, you know, very high double-digit kind of numbers. Now, the only thing I don't have on here, because we don't get to see this data, is how many of them converted that credit card, that auto loan, that mortgage, and we're working on ways to get that, but from the insights and tools we use, we can't link those two together. But the point is that insights drive performance, and performance obviously has a massive impact on the success of the marketing team.
So from your, to sort of come full circle in terms of social insights, MADTECH, from a CMO perspective, and I know Leanne would also speak to this, how does all of this coming together in this fusion of data and insights and MADTECH, how does this come together to really empower the CMO?
I think there's a massive change going on, and you can look at this from an opinion, observations, but also from the data. So, you know, we've come a huge way from the guys who do advertising, which is a very, very, very outdated notion. And so now what we're seeing is there's a much tighter linkage between growth and understanding the customer. And so what you're seeing is you're seeing a couple of things. One is you're seeing the CMO role grow, and you're seeing new titles such as Chief Customer Officer, Chief Experience Officer, whatever it might be. But you're also showing how, you know, you can actually deliver above market growth. And that increasingly is dependent upon some of the things we've spoken about. How do you differentiate? How do you build tighter, more relevant customer relationships? I mean, in short, we're talking about insights. And then how do you drive those insights throughout the company? So, you know, if you think about the data-driven insights, it's not tail end Charlie as one of the channels for communication anymore. The data and the marketing department are now increasingly responsible for developing strategies around who are those audience, and as I said, you know, what products are we trying to get them to be interested in, what are we going to say to them, how we'll reach them. And so what you're really seeing is that the marketing departments are increasingly the change agents within companies. They're influencing the product development. They're influencing the CFO in terms of product strategies that could resonate. So the reality is that the skills are evolving. A lot more marketing and CMOs really need to have soft skills to succeed. They need to be able to, I don't know, kind of build that bridge across other leaders in the C-suite, because you've got more knowledge, more information on who your audience is and what they care about. And so, helping those other functions be successful, demonstrating the value of marketing, I think these are all the core factors in a CMO's ability to succeed. So in short, the CMO's profile is rising. And if you look at some of the recruiter's Russell Reynolds data, in the last, I think it's 2 years, I stand to be corrected, it's either 2 or 3 years, but the average tenure of a Fortune 100 CMO has grown to an average of 45 months. That's nearly double the tenure from the previous period. And the reason is because CMOs who bring data-driven insights into the decisioning, they help the overall organization and use their experience to drive growth, they're going to see their profile and their influence grow significantly.
So would you say now that the CMO is going to now be becoming the CEO?
Well, you're seeing a lot of that, and certainly in financial industry, it's amazing. I haven't really looked at this across, in general, I'd say the answer is yes. I haven't looked at this across all industries. So I'm actually at the Financial Brands Forum here in Las Vegas, and we have about 600 financial institutions here. And as we've had meetings with the companies, I'd say probably a large number of the CEOs have had their background in marketing, and more importantly, we know that to differentiate in the financial industry, there's 12,480 financial institutions in the US. We're beginning to see that the role of the marketing department is evolving to be much more involved in the strategy, and as we know, strategy is what drives most of the companies. So yeah, I am seeing the initial links between having that customer facing, having the insights that not only drive your marketing but drive your business strategy, almost certainly will lead to a lot more CEO positions.
Yeah, definitely. So for the attendees currently on the webinar, and for, I guess, future CMOs out there, I know you say this quote a lot, but what would be like the main takeaway for everybody here on the webinar?
If you look at every industry is evolving at a very rapid pace. And part of that is because of the speed of the dissemination of knowledge. Knowledge drives prosperity. If you go back into the early days of cavemen, they would write where the hunting grounds were on walls. Then we had new innovations called papyrus or paper and alphabets, and we could actually move information around the world a lot quicker. Then you get the printing press. Then you end up with digital technology where every video, photo, everything you can possibly imagine can be put down into zeros and ones. The point is that no industry is successful by staying still. And so if you go back to the days of Charles Darwin, his observations were that it wasn't the strongest of the species that survived, nor the most intelligent of the species, it's the one most adaptable to change. And we're seeing this if you just look at Netflix. Netflix is disrupting the movie and content distribution business. Amazon is at record profits. They basically were cited as the result for why Walmart shut down 264 stores. You look at Facebook and Google using insights to be able to radically redefine the advertising industry. And you look at Apple using, again, insights on iTunes as to what people want and how you can deliver it. The point being is that every single industry has been democratized, so your competitors don't need huge amounts of capital. So my point is that just using the Charles Darwin observation, it's not the strongest of the species or the most intelligent or the one with the most capital or the one that's been around the longest. Survival of the species or thriving of the species is dependent upon those companies, those industries that are most adaptable to change. And when it comes to understanding your audiences, being able to use insights to drive the strategy and therefore the actions that will help you grow faster than your competitors will be your Darwinian defense against becoming extinct. And if you don't like change, almost certainly you're going to hate extinction even more.
That's great. Well, I think now we'll go to the Q&A. We've had a few come in on social, Don. So the first one is, how can you get people on board with the change to MadTech?
Do you know, part of it is actually, I think, talking to companies like Insightpool and getting some real examples. You know, the Craftsman example, the Carter's Children Clothes example. There are so many things that, for me, it's very easy actually, because although I came from many companies who had massive budgets, and the CFO and the CEOs were always complaining about the marketing budgets, the thing that they really were griping about was the lack of a link to say, how do I know that what I'm spending here is driving, you know, results over here? And I believe the ability to be able to get some good examples from Insightpool, do a trial, you know, use the product, etc., but be able to demonstrate. The beauty about insights is that it's so easily demonstrated, and I think you need to prove it out. Just saying, here's another thing to spend money on, is going to fall on deaf ears. You have to use the examples that are around. The Craftsman example, I think, is a wonderful one, and be able to show how these insights could actually allow you to target with precision, to identify new segments, to identify the alignment of a product strategy. And then also it depends on who it is you're trying to convince. Is it the product development team? Is it the CFO? You know, is it the board of directors? Whoever it might be, that is the barrier to being able to get on board. But I think all of us, every single CMO, everyone in marketing, you need to invest first in your own education to say, you know, do I understand how this works, and can I articulate it, or can I work with someone who can help me articulate it? I think those are the practical first steps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think to this question also maybe was a bit answered, but and it might be the kind of convincing your superiors. But what is the most challenging part of combining MarTech and AdTech?
Well, you know, there's the usual issue, which is how you invest your money. Increasingly, you don't need to have massive investments. I mean, if you look at many of the marketing departments, you'll spend $3 million if you're lucky or unlucky on, you know, some kind of marketing automation platform, and then you'll spend money over here, and then you'll find it doesn't all work together. So my recommendation is, I think you have to. The biggest challenge is trying to bite off more than you can chew. I mean, that's obviously why we're very interested in the original discussion with Insightpool, is doing, you know, one example, helping you to prove out a relatively simple example. And, you know, the beauty of those of us who've kind of looked at this in detail know that it scales beautifully. But you don't need to be able to go get in a multi-million-dollar hardware backend. You don't need to get all the, you know, the infrastructure to be designing and integrating lots of stuff. Now, maybe over time you might want to do that, but initially I think you can take some very first initial steps. All you care about, I think, in my humble opinion, is being able to prove to yourself and your colleagues and your finance department is that what this does, what these insights allow you to do, is to filter through the clutter and allow you to target people with precision, and that leads to faster than average growth. The second thing is not getting bogged down on all those bits of data, and that's the second skill, is really cultivating and learning how to take massive amounts of information and distill it into something you can do something about. Insights into action. Those are the two big challenges, in my opinion.
Okay. And then the next question is, I have so many marketing tools. How do I sift through which ones to use? Do I add more to my collection of marketing and ad tech tools, or lessen them?
Yeah, I know. I feel the pain. I really do. I've actually tried to simplify more and more. We've got a lot of tools that are kind of interesting, but I actually think what many of those tools do is they stop you thinking. And so I'm particularly interested in tools that help me get the insights. I'm interested in tools that help me know who I'm talking to. For example, when people come into our website, we do a lot of events, we do a lot of face-to-face activities, but the vast majority come in on the website, or the vast majority of contacts. And so there's a lot of tools we use. I think a lot of them are interesting. So, for example, we have tools that measure how long somebody watches a video. Frankly, a lot of that I could actually look at and say, this is way too long, it's too boring, it doesn't really say anything. So I think we have to be careful to be selective about which tools we could do without and which tools we desperately need. The insights where you can actually listen into, you know, billions or hundreds of millions of conversations, I can't do that in any other way, so I need that tool. The ones where I can make a subjective call that this is not aligned. And by the way, I'm making a subjective call on a video or a piece of content or collateral when I haven't even listened into what my customers are really concerned about or what their worry beats are. For me, I've got to get the insight sorted first, and then I can figure out which tools help me stay on track. But I think it really is the role of as a marketing professional. I think you just need to be ruthless. We can end up with too many tools, and we really need to focus on fewer tools that can help you get the job done. And insights are definitely an essential part of the toolkit, even if you decide to reduce the number of other tools that you're using.
Right. And it seems that a lot of companies now are also doing a lot of different integrations that you can do into your CRM systems, and finding tools, from at least a recommendation from my side is finding tools that you're able to use with tools you already have that have those integrations that can work together cohesively.
Yeah, and a lot of it doesn't have to necessarily mean you're throwing out or adding something new. I mean, I'll give you an example. We have, in the financial industry, as I said, there's 12,480. There's about 100 massive banks with trillions of dollars of assets. There's thousands of banks which have got, a few $100 million of assets, and their needs and wants are different. There's credit unions who exist to serve their members. They don't care about profits. Well, let me rephrase that. They're not driven by profits. They're driven about how do you actually serve your members. And then you've got tiny institutions who have very limited resources and so on. And then we have customers who, even though they love us and would love to work with us, their technology, is not compatible with what we do. So anyway, most companies have the same thing. There's certain people that you'd like to be able to engage with, certain you can't, certain messages you'd like to deliver. And so for us, the insights help us identify what are the right messages for each of those segments. And then I do care about having the marketing automation be able to deliver up those customized messages. So we know that this is Billy Bob's Credit Union coming in, this is the actual profile, the segmentation. I'm going to map them to that particular set of messaging and content. I'll show a particular type of video, a recommendation from a fellow traveler who's got a similar profile to them. And so I still think there's a need for all the back-end integration to make sure that that's all automated. Mm-hmm. But if you're not even looking at the insights to drive all that, you're shooting in the dark. So our priorities are very clear. Make sure we really understand the voice of the customer using insights, and then we figure out how to deliver those pertinent messages to the relevant audience.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Don, for all of your insight and just giving us a better understanding of, how to use social insights and really think through your marketing strategy using those insights and tools in the right way. For anybody that's interested in learning a bit more, we have an ebook here, the CMO and the Rise of Social Insights. We'd love for you to share it and read it and get some information after the webinar. If you have any more questions, please go to Twitter using #SocialInsights, and we'll answer more questions there. Thank you.